What's going on, folks? This is unusual, I know. What I don't have is... Yep, I'm good. Okay. Voice is coming in. I don't know if this is too loud. Okay, turn it down a little bit. Get rid of the music. Good. Music's gone. Everything's good. Everything's flowing good. Okay. Jake, why the hell are you streaming? Well, because I had things happen in my life, and I just didn't have time to edit a video yesterday or today, so I thought, screw it, let's just stream this new map. Who's blinking what? What is that noise? Just wanted to show off the map a little bit. Look at all these planes coming in. Damn, it's pretty. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to turn the HUD off, guys. I'm sorry, Chris. Can you hear me now, buddy? I apologize. I've been ignoring you. Turn the HUD off. How's the stream health looking? Looking good. Everybody in chat? Not that I can tell. Squeeze this over so I can only see the chat. Somebody has any questions or concerns, they can talk to me, so we're just going to go no HUD. Yeah. Hey, come on. Are we on the Axis side there, Bubba? Okay. Gotta make sure I know what I'm doing, because I don't know, but damn, look at this, guys. Look at all the fall colors of death. Oh, yes. The fall colors of death are here. God, I can't believe it is almost... We're almost through July, guys. And then it'll be August. Well, for me, anyway, it'll be pretty close to fall, but... Damn. We got a new map. I'm so happy. I'm thrilled. Okay. Oh, somebody died right there. Is that... Are you a bad guy? You are a bad guy. I shot you in the face without a HUD. Who else is in here? Can I... Oh, there's a... Okay, I probably need a HUD, don't I? Oh my god. Chris, I suck, man. I'm sucking. This is the gimme round. Yeah, this is the gimme round. All right, let me turn the HUD back on. I thought I would just kind of... That's not what I want to do. Oh, look, guys, I got my Cobra skin. Cobra! That guy does too, but you got to go blue. You got to have that blue-red combination. That's what you got to have. Okay, options, gameplay, hide HUD, show HUD. There we go. God, my voice is just shot, man. I am absolutely shot. What are we playing anyway? What is this? This is Breakthrough. Okay. I'm not sure this is going to be a good mode for this. Is there a guy upstairs? There was a guy upstairs? I cannot. I shouldn't be doing this. My voice is absolutely wrecked. There's a guy right there.
Seht euch das an! Gefährlich, oder?
I could kind of hear him, and then I lost track of him. He was running around. If you like to hide, if you like to get in a place and just sit back and wait for people to come through, this is the map for you, folks. This is it. Hey, what's up, Captain? That's what I was talking about, Captain. It is a fun map. It is very pretty. Join you over here. I probably should have gone medic, but there are so many levels to it, man. It is you can hide anywhere. You literally can just hide anywhere you want. I can't see anybody. Oh, like I was laying down. I don't even know how he saw me. Can I get a tea bag, sir? It is required by law to teabag me when you kill me. I mean, that is the absolute truth. Yeah. Yeah, it's a if your team is picking people up quickly, I think I heard somebody say that. But it's just like any breakthrough on this. But this, man, this has a choke point. I've only seen a couple of teams get past this choke point. Like this guy right here, he's coming up behind him right now. He's flanking right now. He's setting up for a flank. I'm gonna tear up his flank here. Nope, he's dead. Where'd that guy go? Oh, okay. Somebody got him. Now we're gonna push. I think you really, if you're gonna play this map too, Captain, you need to bring your tryhard pants. You really need to bring your tryhard pants. I'm not kidding, man. Put your tryhards on and let's go. Because there is no messing around here. Just gonna go for it. I'm gonna pick him up. Hopefully we don't get deaded. I'm just getting shot from every damn direction, man. I don't know where they're coming from. I'm trying like hell. Gotta have my tryhards on. Whoa. I got a feeling I'm worried about that direction over there, man. Uh-oh. They just call it in. They called it in, baby. It's it. Katie brought the door. Oh, what's up, Stiggs? Hey, man, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's your favorite Australian. I don't know why. I know that when I haven't physically listened to your voice in so long. I don't know why I thought you were in Australia. I think I know what it was. There was one time you left a comment on a video. And what's up, babe? I'm streaming, so that's cool. Yeah. There's this one time I think you had told me that our Friday night battlefield was your morning battlefield, and for whatever reason I got that in my head that you must be in Australia. I don't know why that is. I have no idea why I thought that. So yeah. I'm an idiot, man. I know that I don't normally stream just during the week, and this is unusual, but we tried. I think I played about 8 or 9 times this map, and I just didn't feel it. Wasn't feeling it. I'm kind of exhausted. One of our we had a pet that passed away back in May. That was Charlie. And then out of the blue, like we've been getting, used to one of the other cats. We had 3. Charlie passed away, and we had 2. So we had our Toth, and we had Loki. And Loki was about 10 years old, fine health, nothing wrong. And woke up yesterday morning, and he was just gone. He was laid out by the water bowl like he always does, and just gone. Like, what the hell happened? And we don't know. We don't know what happened. So we dealt with that all day yesterday, and I never had time to edit or do anything. And I had a couple. I think me and Chris had something planned. But then they sprung the new map on us, and we were like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just play. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So, what are we defending this time? Okay. And, that's more ammunition. I don't have Chris on the stream right now, but if y'all really want him on the stream, I will pull him in. I just didn't know what you guys wanted. Right here. Come down to this hard right side, Chris. Yeah, set up on that hard right side, and we will take care of them. Yeah, I remember the Battlefield upload on Friday is always late night for me, so I wait until Saturday morning. I gotcha. Yeah, I try like hell to get it out at 5 o'clock my time, and that's probably what, 10, 11 o'clock? Yeah, so I get you. You're on this left-hand side. I would go all the way down. Oh, we've already lost it. We gotta get out of here. Oh, we gotta get on the point. We can still take it. Oh shit. Y'all need some smoke right there. We've lost it. Damn. Son of a biscuit. You're not on the stream yet, because I'd have to go in and actually physically change this over. You're not on the stream yet. Damn, sorry to hear about the cat. Yeah, man. It's it is tough, man. It is tough. I found him. I was like, because I get up with my wife. Basically, I feed my wife and I feed my cats. I'm feeding all of them, man. I'm making them breakfast, or I'm doing something, trying to get them out the door, get them out for school. And yeah, Loki kind of took over that position of just taking care of the lap duties, I guess you'd say, because he was never really a lap cat. He was never on the bed with anybody. He never really cared for it, I can tell. Are they up there? Where they are. And all of a sudden, man, he just changed roles on us. He just changed all of a sudden. Could not hit that guy. Good shot, man. And I don't know why he changed roles. I don't know what. Like, he would get in the bed every now and then. He'd get on lap every now and then. But all of a sudden, when Charlie passed away, he just became the most loving little cat ever. Just pretty much in bed constantly with Christina on her side of the bed. Oh, he is over there. There's a guy right there. Get him? Shit, no, I didn't get him. I don't know how I didn't get that guy. Somebody get that guy. So I was just amazed. Like, all of a sudden, his personality just changed, you know? Just absolutely changed for the, just a little different. And, a friend of ours came over on Saturday, hung out with us. Nothing, you know, nothing stressful. He was just such a chill cat, man. Like, if I could be like that cat in real life, I mean, he was just laid back as hell. Loved him to death. Only about 10 years old. Like I said, there was no warning signs, no nothing. It was just his time, you know? It just happened. I got guys down. I don't know why I'm doing this, because normally I wouldn't just run around picking people up like a madman. I feel like there are bad guys right over here. I was looking for the bad guys. Where are you? Oh, there's a bad guy. Ah, hanging out in the house. Hanging out in the house. Heck yeah. Oh.
Alert, we are losing objective Able.
We have a Bob the Builder? Oh, is he actually building? Well, he might have a challenge or something to get that done. So, you know, what are you gonna do? Blame Dice for that. Hey, buddy, you shouldn't do that. There you go. Yeah, all right. Yeah, my voice is just crackling all over the place. Oh man. Oh, I'm hurting. Yeah. I talked on the stream the day before, and then I think we goofed off and hung out with some friends, and just I need to shut up for a little while. I can't. And I was pretty damn pissed when I found him. I was just absolutely angry as hell. Because of course I'm gonna blame myself for something, thinking that I did something wrong. Shot, man. That's pretty much how it goes. Something happened, like what if, and I was talking to a buddy of mine in chat this morning. I'm like, I can't do the speculation thing, because if I do, I'm gonna go down a really bad rabbit hole, and I don't want to do that. But I will just, yeah, there's no point in that at all. So he's gone. It pissed me off. I was angry. Now I'm taking it out on the bad guys. Well, he went. There's a guy inside still over here. We're losing Alpha, unfortunately. I'm gonna push up. Oh shoot, man! They're right there on top of it. Every time I start watching you play, I want to load it up myself. Do it, man! I wish there's a guy that there's only a few people. I swear to God, I need to get an Xbox. I really do. I need to just get both. I hate the fact that I would have to buy both damn. I don't know why we can't play with people on the other side. I don't get it. I would love to play with other folks on their team. Yeah, if you're gonna play this map, boys and girls, break out your try-hard pants. I'm just gonna go for it. I probably should throw some smoke down here. I'll put some smoke down for this guy. Oh, I just missed him. Damn it. Here, let's get a help crate right there. Now let's push back over here to this right side, because I guarantee you there are people hanging out over here. They have Bravo? Or we got Bravo back. Is that what it is? There's nobody over here. Like, there's no blue, there's no nothing. What's going on?
We've eliminated half the enemy.
We've eliminated half the enemy. Christopher, we've eliminated half the enemy. Love the sounds in this game. I love going through mud. I love going through... Hello. Man, my voice is shot. Right, now we get our flank on Chris. Come on, Chris. Come on, Chris. I don't think this is a flank, but screw it. I'm gonna call it a flank. We're gonna do it, baby. Come on. Oh, that hurt. That hurt, man. You shouldn't be shooting me like that. I want to get that guy right there. Got him. Yes, I feel good about myself now. I want to get that guy right there. I feel good. I want to get that guy. Oh, he died. It's just barely hanging on. Oh, there's too many guys right there. No, you don't want to do that, man. You do not want to do that. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I still haven't figured out whether it's good to... I think the MG is what we're going to absolutely dominate in this game. You know what I mean? I think they are going to dominate. They got 62 tickets left, and they still haven't taken that one. It's tough, man. This is not... This is no easy feat.
Soldiers, we're losing objective Able.
Oh, we're losing the A team.
We've now lost objective Able.
All right, let's get behind them. Oh, they know we're coming. Crap. Crap. Don't! Ah, I was dumb. I should have threw smoke on them. I should have thrown some smoke on some. Please out, yeah. Yeah, I think this map definitely takes that complete squad wipe. Definitely. I think that's also killing my voice right there. I do that. Squad wipe. Soldier 76 reporting for duty. That's causing a big problem. Oh, they're right below us. He's going for Bravo. Sir, come back here. Oh, he went around the corner. Oh, he is hauling ass. Come on, I'm a medic. I should be able to run like the wind.
So few of them left.
I don't know where he went, guys. I've lost him. Where'd he go? I hear him. He's right. Is that you? God bless America. Oh man, he's gonna surprise me. He's gonna give me a karate chop here in a second. Where'd he go?
Attention, we are losing objective Baker.
Of course we're losing Baker, because I can't find the one guy that was on the damn point. Oh my god, I am not battlefielding properly today, boys and girls. Where is this guy? Oh my god. Why do I sound like Bill Clinton all of a sudden, too? Alright. He is on the point, possibly. Let me get up here. Uh-oh. Where is he? He's here. Alright, maybe he's not. Oh, Jesus. There's a whole bunch of you guys down there. Look at you now. Well, those guys are done. I want a rock! I'll come get you, brother.
First aid!
Here, first aid. There you go.
More first aid!
Oh, come on! Oh my god! I was unloading on him, and he went black, black. Where did that move? Yeah, I don't know. I finally just gave up. Oh, the drilling. Yeah, I don't know. Who is it? Hunter. Gear Bear. He is amazing with it. He is amazing with it. Garrett, if you're listening to the stream, man, get your butt in here. Just let me know, and I will make sure I get you an invite. I think the chat's wide open, so I don't think I've got it closed off. I don't think I have it closed off. Yeah, I don't know. Boop, 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 boop. I thought that I had one of those. Oh well, I don't. So Jake, are you interested in the Call of Duty? Hell yeah, man. Very much so. I'm looking forward to seeing more about it. I'm interested in seeing more gameplay, or if I saw the 2v2 thing that they had, and that looks interesting. But I'm not. I don't want it to be another just standard Call of Duty, you know. If it's like, you know, objective based gameplay with squads and all that good stuff, I'm all about it. If it's just running and jumping and shooting and all that, probably not. I'm interested in the story. I will buy the game strictly for the story right now. That's how good it looks. From what I've seen thus far, that's what I'm going to do. As far as the multiplayer is concerned, it will keep my attention if, again, they have objective gate, because they've shown me that they can do a large map with vehicles and everything else. So if they have objective based gameplay like Battlefield, I'm down, man. I am definitely down. I can't do it. I can't do that. I'm gonna go support. I'm gonna go support, baby.
Capture and
I'm
hold the
turning into Bill
objectives as
Clinton.
many as possible, soldiers.
I don't know why. Who's marking what? Why are you marking that back there? Ding, 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 ding. I know. There's nobody there. Quit
Good
doing it.
work. Objective Bertha taken.
I'm at Charles. Charles in charge
done. We have
of
taken
my day
objective Alpha.
and my nights. That's not good.
Enough objectives to sway the outcome of this fight.
I agree. Need something different from COD this year, man. I'm praying, man. I'm hoping. My fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping something of good quality comes out.
Take control of the enemy objectives.
DICE needs a run for their money. I think that I love Battlefield 1. I enjoy Battlefield 5, but we need something else. We need something else. Do you agree, Mr. Chris? Yeah. Yeah. I agree. When the private servers come out, when the specialty modes come out, I've enjoyed the hell out of them, but yeah. I don't know what the hell I'm playing. I don't know. Goofing off. Get behind the bush! It will save you. A bush will save you in this map. It will save you. I swear to God it will.
We are losing objective Bertha.
Where is that coming from? Oh, I see him now. Screw you, dude. Ah, good shot, man. Lemon. Magic. Oh my god. I don't know. You know me, I misspell. I can't read. What's words? I'm from Mississippi. I'm my own child. I don't know. Words are hard, okay? Yeah, I'll go back to this. I don't know what I want to do. Oh, Jesus! Oh, come on! God bless. You got a teabag, sir. You forgot the teabag. You forgot the teabagging, sir. Hold on. See if this guy do it. Yeah, and he's gonna come pick me up. Now teabag him. All right. Well, then I have to teabag him, right? Is that how it works? Okay, teabag that guy. Okay. All right. Teabagging that guy.
We are losing objective Caesar.
Shoot that guy in the face. I'm gonna turn around and go back inside. This reminds me of the New Orleans hotel. So, oh Jesus! A little bit, because you have these little balconies, and you're like, "Tell me something, Mister." Do you remember some of these settings? They're gonna remind me of the little French Quarter, yeah. Little French Quarter area. What was that hotel that we stayed at? Hang on. I'm gonna just put you on. I'm just gonna put you on. There's nobody on here. I mean, there's like 3 people I think watching, but okay. You guys don't mind? No. That's not it. I was gonna put. Oh, wait, am I safe? I don't think I'm safe actually. Is this a safe space? Am I in college? Guy behind that rock over there. Oh, I knew it. I saw it. I knew it. I knew it was coming. Like, oh, can I just kill this last guy before I get shot? Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, God, get a bullets! All right, I'm gonna bleed out. I ran out of bullets. Oh, my voice is just shot. All right, hang on. All right, give me 1 second here. Let me. Where's the thing? Why is the be right back over there? Right, hang on.
We now have control of objective Anton.
Can I please just copy this? No. Okay, so, all right, there. Copy that. There we go. All right. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna flip over here real quick. I'm gonna bring in my friend Chris so he can talk. I'm sure he'll scream out my real name 3 or 4 times in the process. Steven! There you go. All right, you are live, my friend.
Excellent.
You are live. We'll transition.
Thank you, Steven.
Back to the Steven. Thanks, man.
So, I know we're not going to use our real names, but Steven, I have to tell you. Sorry. The world needs to know.
You suck. I don't think anybody needs to know anything, really. I mean, I don't really care. I honestly don't care. I don't. What's the point? I'm not hiding behind a helmet. You know. I'm not. I don't mean that in that way, because I mean I have a guy that I love to watch, and I think that it just adds to the mystique of what he does.
Right.
I love it.
I like to dress like Dr. Business for no reason. Just
There's a guy on the other side of the bridge there.
Seht euch das an.
Not hitting.
Gefährlich, oder?
Yeah, I think if you put your big boy pants on this map, you can do lots. Got him.
Spawn beacon down.
Ow. I'm hurt. I got a guy with a Fiat over there. Got him. Thank you for the heals. Thank you. Hello, my name is Steven. Stick just said his name was Steven. Sticks, you're killing me, son. I'm really and truly, I'm way too old to give two rats' asses. Like, what if somebody finds out my professional name? Well, they're gonna be surprised. Like, you play video games? You know, who cares? I put it all over my book of face anyway, which I don't even use anymore. I'm so bad. Yeah, I don't book a face as much as I used to. There's a guy laying down right beside me. Please don't come get me. Just know to kill this guy. Man, he is just rat. Look at this guy where he's at. Look, the guy came up to res me, and he just. There we go. Oh, that was great. Stick says, "Hey Chris, celebratory grenade as always, and I'm on fire." If you're wondering why I always throw a celebratory grenade whenever I get rezzed, is because I have to hang on to, like, I have my triggers flipped, so I aim and shoot with my top button. And as of now, they don't have a way of changing that grenade thing and then the hold thing. Like, I wish I could just hold with my top buttons and then mark and do all that kind of stuff like I always would, but it doesn't let me do that, unfortunately. Why do I feel like there's a guy right here? Oh, there is a guy right here. Hey, buddy. Hey, here you are. He's hiding in the bushes. Is there a guy right there? There is a guy right there. Right over there. He's just hanging out. Showing off. Shooting people in the face. There's one gentleman, young man who is on PlayStation. He friended me. I don't know if he was I can't think, Chris. My brain dead. My brain done gone done. I can't hit Jack. If he was a subscriber or not. But he friended me, and I think I asked him why, and he's like, "Oh, you're just good." I'm like, are you watching the same scoreboard that I'm watching?"
Well, you are good. I mean,
no, I am not good. I am above average, maybe at best. I am not max Q guy. I am not that guy. I do not play Battlefield 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I play maybe an hour or two a night, and that is it. I think I put maybe 5 hours. 5 hours. No, I'm sorry. That's hilarious. What did it say? I think it's like 16 days worth. I've put in about 2 weeks worth. So I'm over 400 hours. I'm somewhere between 400 and 500 hours of gameplay. That's where I'm at.
Ah, they finally found me.
This close quarters stuff is not good for the Lewis gun. Oh, by the way, guys, when you get in the sunlight, look how this damn thing glares. But, I mean, I'm not ADSing with it.
Yeah, it is shiny.
But if you have certain scopes on you, it's gonna blind you. It's not good. It is not good. I was watching a couple of guys. And I was looking at I think I had the the 1907 on. This guy's up the hill there. Oh, Lord. I got a critical on him. They're coming around up top above us.
Yeah.
Over here, I think.
Vorsicht! Seht euch das an!
Oh, man.
Ow.
Man, I cooked some chicken wings the other night, and Christina was doing the that rub that she puts on them.
Mm-hmm.
And she added just a little. She put too much cayenne. She accidentally just overdid the cayenne. And man, I love it. I'm like, give me more of that, please, because that was good. I love that extra cayenne. It just gives it a little something, something.
Yes, it does. Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, I love wings, but I will say this. Oh, guy, there's a girl right over there. They're driving in behind us again. There's 2 of them behind us right now. Oh, okay. They're underneath and beside the bridge. No, really, my name is Steve. Okay, Steve. All right, Steve. That's cool.
I'm not kidding.
I'm not kidding. My name is Steve, man. I'm not lying. Well, my name is Jake. It's just not my professional name, and it's just not. It's my dad loved John Wayne when I was a kid. There was a movie called Big Jake, so that's what my dad wanted to call me. So, ma'am, we do not go that way. That's illegal. It's trespassing. That is trespassing, ma'am. Sir, sir. Here, y'all have some of that. I gotta reload real quick. Let me just hide. Let me lay down because that's how you hide in this game.
Yeah, right.
And I missed every bullet. Every single bullet. He just Captain Neo'd me. And there's another. Oh shoot! I was right beside a bush. You shouldn't have been able to shoot me, sir. We have lost objective butter, yeah. I was observing you, I think, and then you just got crap killed out of you. All right, I got a running gun. I can't do this. I gotta run and okay. I'm on the 2nd floor. Whoa, I'm on fire. Ah, you're not an enemy. Boo-doo. I believe there's a guy right here around this corner.
Oh my. Have I almost...
There's a guy right here. There's another guy right there. Oh, shit. Shoot. Chart. Get him. Get him. Can they even see you, dude? Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm gonna get a view from where you're at.
But I am stuck. I'm pretty sure if I move, I will die.
Hang on. Oh, don't worry, man. Give me 1 second, and I will help you out. Where are you? What the hell kind of crap is this?
I got stuck in the ravine.
This is a nasty little spot, dude. All right. Shoot, man. I think you are screwed. No. Just go up the hill. Go up the hill. Push to your right. Just push to your right and just keep hitting X or something. Crap, I'm stuck still.
Oh, you came down here too?
Yeah, no, I spawned on you, man. That's how much I love you.
Oh, love the commitment.
Yeah, I spawned on you. Because I love you.
You smoked that bad guy.
Yeah.
Ich bin bei dir, Soldat.
There we go. Ow! There's a guy behind us. He's shooting me in the ass. Get up, boy!
Zum Glück hast du mich.
Get up, boy! I should get up, soldier.
Leg dich zusammen, Soldat.
Like, I want to be able to buy my own voice lines. Oh, that sucks to be you, sir. I know that you're wanting to do that. I know you are. Oh, shit! Oh. Gotta go, Jake. Great stream as always. Definitely gonna. Thanks. Hey, man. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Ich habe Medikamente für dich.
Oh my God! Thank you. Anybody kill the guy on top of the hill? I hope so. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out, Stiggs. As always, man. It's a pleasure. You're a true gentleman, dude.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, I got stuck on a branch. Billy, I got stuck on a branch.
Oh, there's a guy right above us. Oh,
Yeah,
I saw him.
Sam, I'm
last
trying.
second.
I got him. He's still shooting at me. Oh. Ah, I'm running for my life. You know, all I have to do is throw down a damn
Hier, falls du
box.
erste Hilfe brauchst.
Oh, out of bullets anyway. Oh, that was a good one. Let me see if somebody can grab me.
Bin erledigt. Helft
I
mir.
don't even know where I'm at. Yeah.
219 to 275.
Yep, I see that. 214, yep.
Sanitäter.
I'm trying to hold on to see if we can save a ticket or two to catch up to him.
Bin geliefert. Hilfe.
I'm not going to be able to do it, bro. I just burnt myself a ticket. I just burnt myself a ticket, man. All right, are you guys over there by Echo?
Objective Dora.
Yes.
Who is that? All right, I'm gonna spawn on you. So we can get it. I'm gonna move towards Elvis. Love this gun. Boys and girls, if you don't play with the ZK383, you really should. Oh, I should go that way. You should check it out. It's one of my faves. The medic class. It is an SMG. Oh, damn! He spawned on the guy. Oh my god! I walked up and knifed the dude, meleeed him, and then right as I finished, somebody must have spawned in. He turned around and just eliminated me. It was great. Ow! I'm going inside. Screw that. I got hurt in the butt. All right, we got a guy down. Is that you right there, Bubba? No,
Yep.
That's somebody else. I thought you. Are you down? No, that's.
No, I'm alive.
What's that guy's name? Something sausage?
Now have objective A.
Vasquez Super.
Yeah, the super sausage. Get this guy out of this house over here. Wait, that's not on the point. Wait, somebody's on the point. Still trying to learn exactly where all this is.
Yeah, you and me both.
Kind of stuck. I'm stuck. There we go. So, right, this is on the point. We got it
Attention,
anyway.
we have lost objective Friedrich.
Objective what? What did he call it? That's why you should never check the chat, boys and girls. Don't ever look up to make sure that you can look. That was dumb.
Objective Bertha has
I'm
been
just
lost.
running. Every time I get shot and taken out, I'll just say I'm looking at chat.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Ooh, I want to look at chat too. That's my excuse. I need a good excuse.
Oh my god, I'm crying. Hey buddy! Oh shit! Look at that. Just hip fire the ZK383. Just hip fire it, man. Just hip
Erste
fire.
Hilfe. Hier.
When you need to 8 AS, you can do it. I feel like I'm selling the damn thing. I'm like a weapon salesman with this damn gun.
Arms dealer.
Arms dealer, boys and girls, do you want the ZK3? I literally am just. Oh, he's got a ZK383. I can hear it. Oh, somebody got involved in another fight. Hey, man, you should come over and teabag me because you were so superior. Get your butt over here. Bob up and down like a gentleman. Bob up and down. Yeah. Oh, I know who it was. I had Blackfire had just started streaming, and I've never heard of where he was streaming at. It's something to do with Microsoft.
Oh, right.
I don't know what. Do you know what that streaming service is with Microsoft?
Is it live?
I don't know. I'd never heard. I didn't know, and it was trying to create an account. It created an account for me automatically just by me putting my email address in. And I'm like,
Nice.
what the heck is going on here?
Good job.
Oh my gosh!
Boom.
Somebody didn't pay the power bill. I'm making a crap ton of noise. I'm gonna try really hard to kill you, sir. There we go. I'm not gonna teabag you because it's not. That was not. not deserve.
Attention, we have lost
Two guys over here. There's a guy right there, hey, buddy. Oh! Oh, am I getting teabagged? Oh, I couldn't tell. Oh, that was good. That was a good one. I think they're looking for this spawn beacon. It's got Charlie marked, but we seem to be wanting to stay over here at Echo. Is that what you're doing too, Chris?
Yeah. Although I'm kind of getting bored, so I'm gonna run up to 2 Charlies and help a cabin real quick.
Ah! Son of a biscuit! Well, there's somebody nearby. Maybe I can get picked up. K-I-K. What is K? I don't know. Some of these, all right. I gotta let go. That way I don't have a celebratory grenade. Oh, man. He just went boom, boom. Oh, that's not good. Hey, guys. What's going on? They just knew right where I was. They just looked at me and went, no, we know where you are, sir. You're gone. You're done. Oh, good shit. Good shit.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That one almost got me.
Where are you at? I see you. Okay. We're losing Chuck.
Got it.
I completely whiffed. Oh my gosh. I whiffed so hard, man. I whiffed so flipping hard. Come on, get him! All right, let me reload. Come on, no, just reload the gun. Oh! I'm under rubble. Thank you, Michelle.
This is awesome.
Oh, shall! God bless. Look at that. I mean, he's just laying down still, same thing. And he's got like 10 clothes on, and you still can't see him. You still can't see him. You can't see him. This has been a very well-balanced game, I must say.
Yes.
This has been probably the best one I've had all day.
It's too bad they couldn't get their shit together to beat us.
Right. I know, I've enjoyed it. It's been a good round. This is perfect. I just wanted to stream for a little bit, put something out there, because like I said, just the way the days were going and things were happening, I didn't have anything to, I just didn't have time. I thought, you know what, let's just stream. Let's just stream a round or two, see what happens. Yeah, that's going to stand out. But I really don't think anything that you wear, anything earth tones, you lay down, you won't be seen. It won't matter.
Yeah, you blend right in.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Blend right in. Without a doubt, you blend right in. No doubt. I've got all that done. I know the wife is somewhere right here. I think she's right there. She's going to pick up squad mates, or she's right here. She's right at the end. To get her Cobra face mask.
Cobra face mask.
Yeah, Cobra! I've been playing and watching the stream in the same time. Do you want to jump in with us? Captain? We'll make room for you. I'll send you. Well, we'll have to make a new squad, but we can make a new squad and bring you in, dude, if you want to join. It's been fun. It's just rotating. What is it? Conquest, and then you have 2 breakthroughs. That way you can have one on, one attack and one defending. So if you want to join, please do. I think you're on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. Or do you just like going into West Coast servers? I joined a server of yours one time, and I'm like, what's going on? It was West Coast. All right, so we're defending. All right. I got to do something else. I can't play that. I want to try the let's see here. Let's go back to the Gewehr, maybe Gewehr or Carbon. What are you typing? Are you typing out a letter?
Wow, I have a good microphone. Yes, I am. I'm
You do, but sometimes it
sniping
makes a weird staticky noise, but it's good right now.
I think
Back
that
to the
was
power bomb.
me messing with it. But yes,
I'm in
sniping
12th
some
place.
work between.
Hey, what's up? What up, Stud Muffin? His name is Steady Muffin. I just call him a stud. He's my Stud Muffin, you know? What up, dude? You don't play Battlefield, do you, Muffin? Oh, Lord. All right, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it. Muffin, I don't normally stream. I really don't. I'm not a normal streamer, but I just did not have time to put out a video. I like to have videos out at least twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesdays are kind of more of the informative stuff. There's something going on, but there's nothing going on. There's nothing for me really to talk about. I'm not like the news guy. I'm not gonna just do news all the time, but if it's something that can help the community in Battlefield, then I'm happy to help. But there's really nothing that's difficult or hard of what's going on. But I guess next week's is what, the knife. I don't know. And we had one of our pets died yesterday, and it was just really sad, and I really did not have time. We had to deal with that all day yesterday. So I was like, my buddy Chris was online, and I had gotten a few rounds in, but I was like, I don't want to deal with these. I don't want to make anything of these. There's nothing that I want to. What I'm gonna do? Just splice up all the good stuff? And let's just stream. There he is. I see him now.
There you go.
Can I not hit that guy? Come on. There we go. There we go. There we go. Come on, Jake. You can aim. Oh, jeez. And yeah, that's it. That's what I did. He says, that's fair enough. Not this one. You play Battlefield 1. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is terrible. It is bad. It was bad. It was sudden, dude. We just lost one. Dadgummit. We just lost one of our. We had 3 cats. Well, lost one back in May, and then he kind of took over that role of lap cat extraordinaire. My God, I guess I was holding that down. That whole side I was holding down. Awesome. And he just took over. He's just a really cool laid back cat, man. And got up Monday morning to get my wife ready and get her out the door and feed the cats and everything, and he was just laid out by the water bowl like he always does, and he was just gone. He was gone. So we had a lot to deal with past day, and I thought, I don't normally stream. I want to get more in the habit of doing it, and it could be right there. And I think it'd be just a little bit easier. Editing is just, and you know this, editing is a pain in the butt. It is difficult to do. It is hard. But I do enjoy it. Is that guy building over there? What is he doing? I do enjoy the editing process. I like making something out of nothing. I really do.
Yeah, create your own content. Absolutely.
But every now and then, I think, especially when you have like a new map or something, I'll just stream it. Thought it would be nice to do once in a while. Let's see. Come on, give it to me. Somebody got promoted to squad leader.
Cut down half their number.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, if you get your next time you have an MG out, right where I'm at right here, Chris, is a freaking great spot. It is a phenomenal spot, dude. It is a phenomenal spot. Are they pushing me on this side? I think they are.
Not yet.
I'm about to go down. I can feel it. try and get him up, but I think he's in a really bad spot. Got smoke on him, but oh no. There you are.
I've been murdered.
Come on, come on, come on, give it to me. Dadgummit, man. I am on the inch of death. Yeah, it's sad, man. It was sad. I'm just Battlefield is my therapy, I suppose. Hanging out, talking to people, chit-chatting. Because I mean, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing that can be done. He is gone. He was an awesome cat. I loved him to death. I cried my eyes out. But got him. Finally. Come on, Jake. Get your head out your butt. But yeah, he's a good little dude, man. He's a good little dude. I'm gonna miss him. Look at these guys laying down in the field over there. I can't hit that guy. Whoop. They're getting an angle on me. Uh-oh. I'm about to get pushed, I'm guessing. Well, I'm about to get pushed, I think. I'm running out of ammo. I gotta back off. Yep. There's a guy right behind me. No! Oh. I'm in third place on the leaderboard. All right, let me see where I'm at. I'm 14th. Are you in here with us? I don't see you. I can't look that fast. Yeah, but what are you? Which one are you playing? Make that 7. See, you take too long to look at your score, and then there you go. That's what happens. Telling you, man, if you keep this right-hand side locked down.
The enemy ranks are thinning.
I still think they should change this up. Now, I would love to see if you're as a defender, because oh shoot, I got a medic on you. That's good. He put smoke down, so I'm gonna let him medic. I'm gonna let the medic's medic, man.
There you go.
I think I just stole your kill, dude. I really did. I think you just took my kill, you bastard. Oh, that dude just fell over. Oh my god, everybody's just getting slappity sniped right now, man. Medic is medicing his butt off. Yeah, they're starting to use Piats to drop on us. I'm surprised they haven't shelled this whole side yet. Look at all the spawn beacons back here.
Yeah.
Oh, that was cheeky. Oh, I think I hit him for 22. Oh, that was cheeky. Can't stand there too long. He's gonna figure out where I'm at. Full cockney. Yeah, I think this will be a great map for doing scout stuff. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a good map to get your assignments done, because I don't know, it might be. There's a guy right there, right behind that rock. He pokes his head out. Me and this dude are on him. Quit firing at him. Let him poke out. Come on, man. Let him poke out. Bill Clinton over here. Come on, man.
Come on now.
Don't let him poke out. No. Don't let it
Monica,
poke out.
reschedule.
That's what
Come on.
they probably should have said to Bill Clinton. Don't let it poke out.
Yeah, right.
Oh. Boys and girls, Bill Clinton. Just Google it. Oh my god.
9 and 2 and 9 and 3. Not bad.
What did you do?
I did 9 and 3. You did 9 and 2.
I don't think that was. I was just trying to keep that side locked down. I really was. I wasn't even paying attention to where the score was going, because we were not on objective. We're not making points. We're not sitting on the objective. What we were doing our jobs, which was locking down that right-hand side so they couldn't come up. And that's why the assignment system sucks. Because if I could probably have gold out every single weapon if it would have been about, you know, headshots or kills or blah, 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 blah. But since it's objective based in most cases, attacking the objective, like, well, so I have to like let them get the objective and then I have to. Oh, okay.
Right. Hey, by the way, look at the guy in our squad. Oh, he just left.
Oh, what was his name?
Jamaica.
Jamaica? Oh, Jamaica man. Yeah.
He had the brand new skin with the gas mask on. Looks like a reaper of death of some kind.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I think I got killed earlier today by that dude, and he teabagged me. I felt pretty honored. I felt respected. You know what I mean? I felt respected.
I felt good about it.
I felt good. Yeah. No, you know, when somebody teabags you, that's out of they know that you were so good that they have to flex on you. They have to flex their knees because they got one up on you. It's not out of disrespect, boys and girls. Don't go after them. Because if you do, then you get salty. Well, that's called psychological warfare. All right, going as a medic. Let's just bull rush alpha. Just bull rush it.
Secure the objective.
Don't fiddle fart around because they've got to run too. Damn, good shot. I should have been laying there. Couldn't even see the guy. Could not see him. If you can get me, go for it, dude. Okay, you're dead. You just have to jam smoke on it, I guess. Throw some smoke on it. You can throw some smoke on it. I wonder what getting the high ground attacking is like. Is that any good? Is that worthy? I think we should have already had... Whoa, you went down hard. Oh, that's because there's a guy right there. Hang on, sir. I'm going to have to come up here and... Yeah, gotta shoot you. Now I gotta pick you up. Come on, pick him up. There we go. Right in the ribs. Love that it stabs him in the ribs. No, sir. Pulling up. I'm gonna go around back. Chris! Oh, shit. Does anybody have a spawn beacon in our squad? There's people upstairs. There's people upstairs still. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. I hear you. You can quit doing the dingy ding ding thing. All right, everybody's in here. I'm gonna bull rush. Clear. There's multiples downstairs, I think. Oh, that was a bad mistake on his part. He's not having himself a day, boys and girls. Ah! Okay. Oh, shit. Excuse me, sir. All right, we got it. We got the sector. I got everybody down in here. I've got to see if I can pick them up really quick before we burn our tickets out. Oh, your microphone is making some weird staticky noises. Making some really weird... Or is that... Oh, son of a biscuit. I didn't know somebody was going to be sitting there.
You sneaky. Is this better?
I don't know, man. I heard some static and I know your mic is prone to do it, so I don't know. I heard something. I thought it was in game. I'm not sure. So I don't know. I couldn't tell. I was looking for this guy, and then all of a sudden, but you know, you're okay. You're at a good comfortable level. So if there's a little bit of static, it almost sounds like it's part of the game. It sounded like a spawn beacon on acid. How's that? Is that good? I swear to God, I get that you guys want to keep calling out people, but just, you know, brother out. Yeah, they're getting the high ground here. Come on, dude. Hey, dude, you need some help. Okay, never mind. Screw that. There's an MG right over there somewhere.
Shit. That is, as you said it, I got killed by it.
Oh, that's a good shot, dude. Good shot. Hey, I'm healing somebody. That's awesome.
Nice.
An assault player that can't do jack squat for me. Istaba. What did you learn your German from? That's Battlefield, yeah. Oh man, my hero, dude. At the last flipping second, too, bro.
Following you.
I want the high ground. I really want to see if I can get up high, higher than them. I want the leverage if I can get it. He keeps marking somebody over here, and I can't see about where he's at. I see a blue dot off in the distance. Here, let me heal this guy up. There you go, bro. Some of these trees you just cannot move through. All right, we gotta move. We gotta get the high ground and then take those guys out. Maybe get some leverage on them. Yeah. There we go. Here we go. I cannot stand up here. I'm stuck. I'm sliding all over the damn place. Yes. All right, I'm just gonna go down. You guys stay there. Oh shit. Okay. Directly below me. Directly below you guys. I'm just gonna bleed out. I don't know where anybody. I can't see anything, dude. So stay where you're at. You're a really good spawn point. I would just push down. They're right around the corner from you, directly to your right. In those bushes over here.
Oh yeah, I'm creeping up on them. I fell. There's a point where you can't go any further.
Nah. Yeah, Katie barred the door. Right. Guy laying down right there.
Nice.
I think we're on a really good team. Hang on, let me see if I can get this gentleman back here. Come on, dude, don't bleed out, don't bleed out. Oh man. Why? 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 You had cover. You were available to be picked up. I don't get it. I don't get it. Ah, I should have had that guy. I should have had him. Good stuff, dude. Good stuff. I mean, my dad only knew like a couple of words, really. I mean, he knew, and he was, my dad was in Vietnam, and I think he went to Germany way before all that happened. He was a radio, he was a radio guy. So his survival rate was really low. I'm lucky to be here, damn it. But he said that he went to Germany. That's where he first stopped at, right? And he learned like a couple of words, like, you know, where's the bathroom, eat food, your bed or mine. Like, really? Okay.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. I think he hip fired me with that MG. Oh man, legend right here. Legend. All right, we got to see if we can get this. Okay. Look at all these guys over here. Look at them. Look at them, all of them. Look at them.
That's that sun.
All right, we got to see if we can push Bravo right now.
I'm right below it.
Oh, come on. Come on. Oh. Dadgummit. Oh.
So close.
Yeah, we're really close. We can get it. We need to maybe. Blah. Blah, 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 blah. Captain, what's up? I got picked up by you. Awesome. Oh, we gotta make room for Captain.
All right, right over this hill, baby.
Yeah, but I got an MG onto my right. Oh, shoot, 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 shoot. Why can't I not go on that hill? All right, I can't pick anybody up, man. I can't pick anybody up. Yeah, I'm screwed. Every time I die, I see an explosion. It's like Doritos flying in the air. Like those black Doritos, you remember?
Dorito black.
I don't know if they're black. They're more like purple. You know, like that Thanksgiving color. What is it about orange and purple that made up Thanksgiving colors and brown? What is that about? And gold. That's autumn colors, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you guys keep going that way. I'm gonna go around down. I'm gonna go bottom right or bottom left. Excuse me. I'm gonna go downtown Julie Brown. All right, I'm gonna go downtown Julie Brown. Come on, we can do this. Downtown Julie Brown. We got this. Come on, pick him up. All right, buddy. Here, have a. Where are you going? Where are you going? Come on, guys. I'm the medic. Don't be like trying to. Ow! Just remember, my box of love is right there. It's my health box. It's love. It's healing. It's all powerful. Look at all these guys on the. All right, we should be. There's a bunch of them trying to push over towards us. Y'all may have that right side now. Oh, this is just insane. This is so good. I'm gonna back up a little bit here. I can't see because of how smoky it is. Smoky. Hey, buddy, smoky. Oh my God, this is great. I'm on fire. I really cannot talk. All right, let's. He's got a shotgun. Oh, is that an MG? Oh, MG's up top. This is. It is a. There are parts of this map that remind me of Grind. Like literally remind me of the Grind so much. Thank you, Bubba. You got him. Let's go. You. Da-da-da-da. Oh, I don't know if I can get these guys up. I'm just gonna have to keep moving. This gun is like butter, boys and girls. I love it. Don't you hurt my teammate. Oh, son of a biscuit. Well, we almost got it. Oh my God, we got it. Oh my goodness gracious, we got it. All right, so now we just need to clear that sector. Take out as many enemies as we can. We'll get some tickets back. I think it's 3 tickets per dude. Per enemy. Squads. What squad are you in, Captain? Captain, I have an empty slot in my squad.
Attack the next sector.
I'm just gonna. I can't send you an invite.
Oh shit.
It's not my squad. That's why. But we do have an empty spot in my squad right now. We're in easy squad, easy company. What is that guy doing? Look at that guy. He's all bent over, shaking like he knows what's about to happen. He knows it's coming. No, doctor, please don't. Yeah, I haven't had that test yet, Chris.
Well.
Oh, yeah, I haven't had that test. Oh, half of our forces have been lost. Yeah, no doubt.
Thanks, Captain Count.
Thank you. Awesome. Christian, you are a scholar and a gentleman, sir. Appreciate it. How far over can we go? I couldn't shoot him through that fence. Dadgum, man. That's if you want close quarters combat, of course you know shotguns are always down for the win.
So true.
Thank you, sir. I just got picked up by a COD member.
We almost have the center.
I had no idea we only had 3 left. All right, let's see if we can get this done. We need to work together.
Yes, we do. I'm picking up the whole fucking army here.
Are you doing the revive circle jerk? Is that what Black? I think that's what Black had said, man. That cracked me up so hard. They're all doing the revive circle jerk. I was gonna stick around and watch this stream, and I realized I'm like, I don't think I like anything to do with that. Hey, buddy.
Holy shit, that was a bad guy.
I put in my Gmail, and it gave me Daggone, man. That dude is good with that shotgun. Guys, you gotta turn around and look. Oh, we only have so many tickets. I'm trying to hold on to them. I'm not gonna bleed out. I'm just gonna hope and pray I get a res and somebody takes out this dude.
That was so close.
Hello, I just saw 2 blue dots and a red dot following right behind him, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Hey, Mr. Rose, what is going on, brother?
Alert, we are
John
losing
Rose.
objective Anton.
Yep, Mr. Rose stopped in to say hello.
We are losing objective Caesar.
John, what's up, buddy?
That's Christopher hanging out with us on the stream today.
Christopher's my code name.
Dadgum, man. How many bullets do I have to put in a guy to drop him? Yeah, his what is it? Mostly lethal right now? Mostly lethal is on the board. Sanitators! God, man, I could have swore I I was hitting every shot. Jeez Louise. All right, so we got the back objective. And that's good. Let's see if we can get Alpha.
Alpha? Okay.
That's something. We gotta be on. We gotta work together because we got 3. Hey, buddy. Ah!
Fuck.
Where that guy went.
Literally turning in a circle, getting shot in every direction.
Yeah,
Like, which way to run?
I'm with you, bro. I'm here at Alpha.
Hilarious and also not.
No, I'm here at Alpha.
All right. I'll be fast traveling to you.
We need to like grab one and stick it. Somebody's in here with a shotgun again.
I'm locking down this corner. I got this corner.
Roger that. I'll lock down this one. This is gonna be the stream from here out. We're just gonna sit in this flipping room. That's the only thing we can do to hold it down. And well, mostly just said screw it, I'm moving. So we lost. Damn. Looks like a cheat. Maybe he's there's very few cheats that you're gonna find on console. You're not gonna find a lot of them unless they got a hack console or unless they've got some sort of mod to put on the controller. That's about it. And I have a strike pack and I don't have it on currently. I haven't put it on in a long time because it went out. And I thought, I just want to use it without that. I've never used the mods. Everybody kept saying, oh, you can put some mods on there. I think my friend, one of my friends, he loves them, man. Well, it helps control the recoil. I'm like, still, that's not fair. That's not. I need to be able to control the recoil on my own. So I just took it off finally. And the reason I took it off too is because I get a faster connection between it being hardwired to the console versus it just being, through the Bluetooth. It's a lot faster. So yeah, John, I don't stream on the never underestimate the Chinese, he says. That's true, man. I know people have purchased. Hey, Captain Hot says, no, I cannot talk anymore, man. Captain Autismo has joined the squad. Welcome aboard, sir. So we got the St. Jake platoon going, and Team Zombie McGee. Oh, that's great. But like I said, don't normally stream, but I couldn't get a video out today. Normally I do a Tuesday, but with everything that happened yesterday, and I had no time to put anything together. If anything, it would have been something really short and simple with the map. I thought, you know what? Let's just stream. Let's just do it. Screw it. Oh, I think I grabbed the wrong kit. I thought this thing was supposed to mirror your loadout. I swear to God, I have it on mirroring. I really do. Let's meet up and go drink if we can. Get Patrick's balls out of his wife's purse, and we can invite him. Okay. Did you hear that, Chris? I just read it out loud. Didn't even think. I didn't even edit myself. I just read. So pretty much, if you write something, I'm probably gonna read it. I'm on this side with the captain. I'm following you, Captain. I really should have made this more real time.
Good show. We've taken objective easy.
All right, Captain. I'm gonna move up to Delta, brother. We can't let them have Delta. We gotta move to Delta.
First enemy taken out.
We gotta have Delta. Yeah, but I'd love to meet up, man. I mean, now would be a great time because we're you know, we could use some company, to be honest with you, bro. We really could. We could use some company or go hang out or do something. But I would love to meet up with you guys someplace. I'd love that. Man, the bird sounds, the animal sounds in this game are just insane. I love them.
The outcome of this fight.
Hang on, Captain, I'm coming. Hang on, buddy. Hang on, no, hang on, Captain. Oh, man. There's somebody nearby? What's that noise? You messing with your microphone again, dude?
Yes, I am. It's a brand new toy. I can't help it.
You need to get a swing arm. Come on, hit him. God bless. Oh my gosh, dadgum, man. I could have swore I had him.
Listen, soldiers, we are losing objective.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to meet up for drinks sometime, John. Just come over to y'all's place and hang out. Y'all come over here, hang out. I don't care, man. I really don't. I'd love to be around you again, buddy. Oh, thank God. Are you taking the squad lead finally? Somebody marked something. Jeez Louise, man. They're trying to block us. Oh, he. Okay.
All right, let's see. Right, we'll go Bravo.
Let's go for the Beaver. Yeah, he thought about that decision really quick after I started shooting him. Watch out, Bubba. Come on, dude. Come on, man. What the? What? Come on, Dice! I don't know what just happened, but a blue dot stood in my way and I could not get out from around him, and I tried to leapfrog him and I leapfrogged off the bridge and died. It was awesome. Uh-oh. All right. Somebody's PlayStation died. I'm the squad leader. Oh God. Whoa. Jeez Louise, man. I have no idea where this guy is. This guy, I mean, I cannot see where this dude is.
Warning, we have lost objective easy. We have taken objective Baker.
Dadgum. Good stuff, dude. Good stuff. Yep. That sounds like a plan. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Chris. He's gone, man. I don't know what happened. He split. Something must have happened. Something happened that I don't know. He left me. This is where I got deaded the last time.
Hear this, objective Baker has been lost.
Oh, yeah, of course, he's just sitting there hanging out. Got his s'mores ready. Good God. I love players that camp. Oh, nothing wrong with it. They're protecting the objective, but damn. I get it. I don't like it. I get it.
Good work, objective Baker taken.
Just but that is Battlefield. Battlefield is an objective-based gameplay. Oh crap! It's behind me.
Bleeding hell.
We have taken objective Charlie.
Good stuff, dude. I think he's down. Cool.
Have this first aid.
Dadgum. Just walked up and went, hey, buddy. Just dead. I don't know how the hell he saw me. I have no clue how the hell he saw me. Thank you, sir. Did y'all pick that guy up? I hope you did, because I'm gonna go pick this guy up. Come on, pick him up. I hate the revive system now. I really do. I wish it was just whip out your thing and hit it. Came out wrong. Alright, so we got that. We're losing Charlie and we're losing Delta. There's multiple people here right now. There we go.
I'm back.
You back?
Yeah, my whole game crashed.
Yeah, I kind of figured something happened.
We have lost objective Charlie.
It froze, and then I kind of like thought like it was gonna come back to life.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe. No.
Right.
When you get a moment, if you could send me a squad invite.
I get a moment? All right.
Yeah.
You're not online.
We have lost objective.
Oh, there you are. I
Baker's
see ya.
soldiers. Objective Able has now been lost.
There you go.
Fix it, dice.
Fix it, dice.
Everyone shits on this company so hard that they love their stuff so much.
Yeah. There you go.
Good
Soldiers,
stuff.
capture
I'm
the
in the play away.
objective. Yeah, I'll fix you.
We are losing objective Dog.
Come on, pick him up. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that. That was dumb of me. Oh, it was dumb of me. Why is it not? Why is my stream health bad? It's saying that it's bad. I'm pushing up 20,000 kilobytes a second. My CPU's at 4%. What's going on? Why is it struggling?
Could be the like our actual network connections, like with our provider.
I'm pushing it. No, man. I'm green on my side, and I have fiber. I mean, I can push up almost 1,000. Good lord, that's not good. I'm dead. Okay. Oh, I'm not dead. Oh, I'm dead now. That was dumb. Oh, fix your game, Dash. All right, let's go.
We have taken objective dog.
I don't know how we're losing because I feel like we're dominating these guys, you know? Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I'm being dominated. If that makes any sense at all. Does that make sense? Like the team is doing well, but I feel like this particular round I'm just getting my you-know-what pushed in.
Yes.
This is a stupid spot to lay. But yeah, I feel like that's happening a lot right now. Alright, we're getting Bravo back. Still don't know why the stream is suffering. There's nothing that I can do to change that fact. Unless she's uploading something of extraordinary size, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I have no clue. Ah, I wouldn't panic. See, that's what happens, boys and girls, and you start looking at your stream and all your stats. You don't pay any damn attention to the game. Oh, I'm so dumb, man. I don't know. I just sit there and I'm trying to figure out why. I look up and I just saw red. It says video output low, and I'm looking down. I'm like, I'm pushing 20,000 kilobytes a second. I mean, what's going on there?
What more do you want?
I mean, technically, for 1080 video, I should only have to push 10, maybe 15. But somebody was saying, "Oh no, what you've got to do is you really got to push up 20,000." I'm like, really? Okay. I mean, I can do that. That's not that big of a deal. That's 20 megabytes a second, is all that is. Just, I mean, you've watched me play with that gun. It's just, a shotgun is just evil. It's okay, now it's green again. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
We can still turn this around.
I have no idea. What's my kilobytes? Still 20,000, 22,000. Beats the crap out of me, man. I have no clue. All right, let's go for Echo. Hell with it. We're over here.
Go! Capture the objective!
Let's go capture the objective. I thought you said that you were only going to hang out for about an hour. Hey, buddy! No! God bless that shotgun. Everybody's running shotgun, man. Everybody's got a shotgun. Should we just switch to just be the all shotgun team?
We could.
Oh, God.
Wounded! Medic!
Hey, shotgun team! Oh!
Help me!
Yeah, I don't care for playing support all the time. It's not my favorite class.
You lose all the fun explosives.
Yeah, assault is my absolute favorite class. Yeah, assault, because I call it, you can rearrange. It's called redecorating.
Yeah, we gotta capture the objective.
Objective Charlie is now ours.
No grenade out!
Attention, we have lost objective Fox.
I like this bread. It's getting hot.
Fine work. Objective dog is ours.
Is that ours? Okay.
Get patched up, soldier.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I play whatever the hell is required of me to play for us to win. That's pretty much what I'll do. I'm a team player, man. I'm a team player. Come on, please don't let there be anybody around here. Good. Team player to the rescue. Chris, we don't have Alpha. Do we want to fall back?
I think we might.
I'm gonna mark Alpha.
Capture the...
Ah, damn it. As I'm marking, I get killed. Or get knocked, I should say. Thank you, Captain. You are the man, dude. Let's pick these guys up real quick. I'm gonna watch this guy up here. And the two guys just came down below. He's running inside the building and around. Captain Optismo to the rescue. Oh, we got a bunch of them. Oh my God, what a cluster that was. I play so well in one game, and right now I think I'm 6 and 10. I'm complete garbage. All right, I'm gonna spawn at Charles. We'll spawn at Charles and see if I can work my way. Come on, dude. Oh God! If that, yeah, I think I'm toast. I'm absolutely fried. I'm tired. I'm fried. I'm too old.
I'm too old for this shit.
Well, right now I think I'm just kind of in a relaxed mode. I'm not really. I think I put my try-hard pants on for a little while, and I did really well. And now I'm just like done. Katie bar the door. I'm done. There's nobody that I can see over there, Chris. Go ahead. Go take it.
That's objective Charlie lost.
You taking it? I'm gonna come help.
Yep.
Alright. Take it from right here.
House is clear.
This house is clear. My house is clear. You know what? Oh, I haven't.
Big guy coming in.
I got.
Coming right to you. He's below you. Oh!
He just sniped you?
Alright, there's two bad guys. There's two bad guys. One's on the level below you, and then at your 3 o'clock on your same level as boys 18.
Get off my tractor, that's mine.
Okay, soldier, we need an artillery barrage at this position.
We have taken objective dog.
Oh! I thought for a second I was gonna put my try-hard pants back on, but they didn't. I didn't get them all the way up. I didn't get them all the way up. Oh no! Thanks, Captain. Go, baby! Yeah, Captain! Yeah!
Stupid knife.
No! Son of a bitch! Oh, that was great, man. I love this game. God, I love this game.
Excellent efforts.
Hey, get back over here and teabag me, dude. Oh, they want the tractor. Oh, that's fantastic, man. They're pissed because they took the tractor. We gotta find a tractor, Chris. That's our mission right now. Find a tractor.
You can take a tractor.
Yeah, you can drive a tractor on this one. I want to see if we can find one. Where would there be? Well, the farm is over there by them. I gotta know, man. I gotta know. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta know. I gotta find a tractor. That's my obsession right now. I gotta find one. Got to find the tractor. Anybody in chat know where the, what's up, Crazy Chad? Yep, it's going good, man. How are you doing, sir? I need a tractor. I need myself a tractor is what I need. Yeah, man, I don't normally stream on Tuesdays. I don't really stream that often, actually. But I thought, new map, what the heck? Other stuff that was going on in my life, and I just said, you know what? I don't have time to edit. Because I was busy all day yesterday, and really, things were just kind of wrapped up today. And so I just said, you know what? Just a stream. Just a stream. As of right now, sir, I have not found a. Oh! I just ran into a bunch of bombs going off. I have not. I did not see a tractor, sir. Do we have anything else we can drop on them? Let's see if we can get a supply crate on them. Do I see a sniper laying somewhere? Somebody mark me a sniper. There he is. All right, let's put a supply crate over there.
Holy shit.
Supply canister for us, soldier.
You guys watch to see if it pops up on my. Ooh, that guy went down hard. Hard. Oh, I missed him. All right, let me see if I can get this guy right now. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Hold still. I got you.
Whoa! MG over there on that bridge, man. Never heard of anyone asking to be teabagged? Well, you know, I think it's out of respect.
Right behind you, Captain Actismo. Oh, no.
I think it's out of respect. You know, you want them to teabag you, you know?
I mean, I'm gonna teabag them.
You really want it. Because if somebody teabagging you, that means you're getting under their damn skin. And usually when I teabag, to me, I just want to let you know it's out of respect. But for most people, they get pretty salty about it, and I think it's just good psychological warfare, really. Anything to throw somebody off their game, man. Anything. This is just like any other sport. If you can get under somebody's skin, they're not going to play well. And Chris knows, man. I get pretty ticked off at times when I'm playing this game. I get very competitive. I'm extremely competitive. I'm not competitive with myself. I'm not competitive with my KD. I'm not, you know, give two rat's asses about any of that. I like to win the game mode. I like to win.
Now, capture the objective.
Uh-oh. Guy right here.
Bravo.
Right by the... Yeah.
For you.
I love how there's a door right there still.
Right.
There's a door icon. It's, look, you can just open it. Oh, it does open. You can close it. Here, close that.
Yeah, defend the bloody objective.
You want to push Delta or Charlie? Come on. There we go.
Oh,
You gonna lay
yes.
down? That was your solution to me shooting you in the ass, is lay down and turn around. That's what your idea was. Let's just go up here to Chucky. Charles in charge of our days and our nights. Yeah. That's a leaf, Jake. That's a leaf. I could have swore that was a dude. I'm not kidding. I thought that was an actual dude.
Get some first aid.
We have taken objective Charlie.
We've taken the objective, soldiers!
Other smoke grenade.
Smoke up.
Good.
I'm
Oh
heavy.
boy, I gotta get this guy to move, man. Woo-wee. I'm gonna fall back to Alpha. We're losing it right now, dude.
Defend the bloody objective.
I'm just wondering if there's anybody on this path over here.
Oh,
90 to 146. We're burning their tickets like crazy, but I don't think we're gonna do enough. Oh shoot! There's two of them. Ah, I suck. Best door ever.
Be aware that objective Able has been lost.
Yeah, that was I love little things like that in this game. These weird little details that just crack me up. That's any video game, really. You know? Losing Foxtrot. Okay, they put their tryhard pants on, man. I'm gonna join you guys at Alpha. Oh my God! I had no idea. Where'd that dude come from, man? Can you get them up? I couldn't get him up in time.
Oh, well.
First aid for you, soldier.
Split up, split up, split up. He's up. He's outside. He's outside on me. Moving around in front of the house. Moving out towards you guys. You guys can't talk. 62 to 109. Come on, man. Oh, son of a biscuit. We got a scout over there, or an assault rifle over there. Or we gotta move. We can't sit here. I'm headed back to Charlie. I'm getting shot in the back. God bless, man. Maybe we should just hold up at Alpha then. Maybe we should just hold Alpha. Like, just hold it. Just be a thorn in their ass.
I'm wounded.
Going to just do that?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's just be the thorns that we are. The thorns that I know that we can be. The lovely thorns. I'm out of ammo.
If you can find me, I can give you some.
Actually, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm just a goofball.
God damn it.
If he pops a flare, I'm screwed. Did somebody just pop that thing? Oh no. Dadgummit, man. I think somebody shot his thing. Nope, he's still there. Dude, there were like several people right behind you.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, shnikes! Oh! How the hell did he shoot me through the house?
Hang on one sec.
Just mute it, man. Just mute your mic if you can, if you got something to do. Dadgum, man. All right, see if we can get back to Alpha real quick. Oh, okay. No spawn point for you. All right, what's going on here? Bravo is solid. Let's see if we can get back up there.
Soldiers, capture the objective.
Ah, it's too late. It's over. 80 by the dough. That's it now.
Don't panic. Help will be along.
Son of a gun, man. If we could have just held on to Alpha. Maybe. Yeah, that's it. That's over. Oh, my goodness gracious. A little battlefield music.
So close and yet so far away.
Yeah, right? It is indeed. It is indeed. That new outfit, man. That helmet with that weird, I don't know what that's about. That just, that makes zero sense to me. I don't know what that is. I have no clue what that is.
Neither do I.
It's got a plus symbol or something in red on it. I don't know. I found him really difficult to see when he was hiding.
Noblesse oblige.
It's like, pay to win, baby. Pay to win.
Oh, if that's what it does, then
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I don't think that's, I don't know what it is. I like I said, the only reason I got that one skin is that birthday gift, and that was it. I thought, well, I got it on my card or PlayStation thing. I might as well use it, and I've never even pulled them out to play with them. Sound weird? It does sound weird. I saw somebody on Twitter had a set of Star Wars things they picked up for the 40th anniversary and was asking should he open them. I don't, you know, each his own, man. I know some people are like, yeah, open those things up. Other people are like, no, don't. Are you out of here, Chris? You done?
I am officially done.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think that's about it for me too. I'm pretty.
It has been fun.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate that too.
My pleasure. Autismo, good to see you, man.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Cool. All right, man. I will catch you soon.
All right, brother.
Bye.
Guys, y'all have a good night, and thank you for hanging out. I'll catch you next time.